Are you looking for ideas on what to declutter? Today, I'm going to share 100 things to declutter, and I bet you won't even think twice about these. It's amazing how much stuff seems to creep into our lives and into our homes. Hopefully, this list will help inspire you to find those items that you might not have thought about. If you end up enjoying this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's jump right in. Cleaning supplies. A lot of the time, we get tons of cleaning supplies, and then we have a cupboard full of stuff that we're really not using. I know I tend to use the same few items over and over again when it comes to cleaning. Candles. One day I was decluttering with my mom and she mentioned how she never lights real candles. She just doesn't like them. She doesn't feel safe. And so I mentioned that she could easily declutter those without really thinking twice because she already knows she's not using them. Vases. Sometimes we get flowers from someone and it comes in one of those generic vases, and I know I've done this. You stick it up in the cupboard and don't really think about it ever again until you open the cupboard one day and realize you have 30 or more of those simple glass vases that you could easily declutter without thinking twice, because if you go to the thrift store, you can easily find so many of those vases listed around $1 to $2. Pots. I love plants, so sometimes I have an overabundance of pots that I'm not really using, so I can let those go. And then, like I said, you can go to the thrift store and find one really quickly when you actually need it. My mom and dad used to collect matches. They had a big glass container of matches that they never used. It just collected dust, so that was an easy one to let go of. DVDs. We had a lot of DVDs that we never watched, and we didn't even have a DVD player. So I was easily able to declutter those. And I know this won't apply to everybody, but if you have DVDs and you don't even watch them, you don't have a DVD player, come on, let's get rid of them. Pet supplies. One day I was helping my mom declutter and we came across some pet stuff, and my dog had passed away 10 years before that. So they did not want to have another dog. It was an easy thing to declutter. So check those cupboards for things that really don't apply to your life anymore. Garden tools. Get rid of all the things that are broken and you're no longer using. We had a whole bunch of cutters, clippers that were jamming and just were frustrating to use. So that was an easy one to get rid of. Picture frames. I had so many picture frames and that caused a lot of clutter in my home and a lot of stress trying to keep them clean and dusted and all of that. I now have a Aura frame, which I can link down below, and it's just a digital frame so all my photos can go on there. I'm constantly seeing new photos, and I was able to declutter all the picture frames that were scattered all around my house. Utensils. Go through your kitchen and find those duplicate items. They're usually really easy to find, and I don't mean like if you have two tongs or something that you use all the time. I'm talking about, I've been in people's homes where there are 10 or more of something, like spatulas. We even went to a Airbnb on vacation and they had so many duplicate items. It was crazy. You could barely shut the drawer because of so many spatulas. So simplify and go through the utensils. I have a blog post and a free printable checklist that you can get by joining my email list down below. So I will put the link in the description box, and let's keep going. Kitchen appliances that you're no longer using. I just use this example because it was in my home and my mom's home, which was to declutter the crock pot. I know I'm gonna get comments saying, I use my crock pot all the time, just start using it. That's fine. If you do use it, that's great, keep it. But for us, we were not using the crock pot ever. And my thought was, I'd rather have the space in my kitchen than have something right in the way all the time where I can't get to anything else. And the level of frustration was just not worth keeping it. Plastic storage containers. Now, I do keep a few, but at one point when I initially started decluttering my house, I had so much stuff that I was giving away that I previously kept in these containers that I was able to declutter like 10 plastic containers that have the lids, the big ones, the small ones. So definitely do this in moderation. If you think you might use it in the future, then maybe you're going to want to keep a few. But I was able to declutter quite a few plastic containers. And the good thing about that is when you don't have the plastic container, you're less likely to want to keep things and store things that you don't really need in that plastic container. Remotes. We had remotes that didn't even go to anything that was in our home. Guides and manuals for things that you no longer have in your home. We had a whole folder full. Old makeup that either you no longer need or is so old that it's smelly and probably expired. Hair products that just didn't work for you. All the extra brushes, combs, curlers that you're not using. Old hair blowers that have gone kind of funky over time. I had 2 hair blowers and I realized, why do I have 2? One of them was just not working that great and the handle was getting all sticky. So I could easily declutter that. Look at your underwear. Sometimes it's too small, doesn't fit properly, or there's just an overabundance of it. Bras, look at how many you have and how many you actually wear. Get rid of the ones that you don't really like and are uncomfortable. Sandals or shoes in general that are uncomfortable, you find you're never wearing, or sometimes they're falling apart. Light bulbs. At one point, I just got sick of storing so many light bulbs. Now what I do is when I see I need to replace a light bulb, I go out and I get them at that time. I might have 1 or 2 extras, but it just didn't make sense to be storing all these different light bulbs for all the different light fixtures in our house. Old tape. In my mom's home, we found so much old tape. It was not sticky. It had kind of melted apart, no longer worked. So look at old stuff that truly does go bad over time. Hats. I finally decluttered all the hats that I thought were cute, but really didn't fit my head. Flashlights. So not all flashlights are created equal. I have some good high quality flashlights, but I was able to declutter all the really cruddy ones that just ate through batteries, but really didn't have a strong light. And I had a whole bunch of flashlights. So that's something to think about. Like, we only need so much of everything. Clothing. My rule is if it doesn't fit right, it doesn't look right, or I find myself never wearing it, just pushing it to the back of a closet, it's time to get rid of it. I also try to remember that if I decluttered something and I later wonder about it, I have to remind myself that there was a reason why I got rid of it. It was probably in one of those categories that I just mentioned. And so therefore I don't have regrets or feel bad about it. If you're enjoying this list and you're getting some helpful tips out of it, then make sure you check out my ebook. I will link it down below with more information. Old phones, cords that go to nothing. I think we've all been there where we come across a box of cords and we wonder, what the heck does all this go to? Extra blankets that are just cluttering up your linen closet. Sheets. We try to keep 2 sets of sheets for our bed, and then when those wear out, we will get a replacement. Pillows. I decluttered all the extra throw pillows. I only have 2 on our couch, and then I just have the 2 pillows as the backrest pillows in our bedroom. Buttons. My mom had this big jar of buttons, and even I was saving buttons. How many times have I actually replaced a button and found the right button that went with that shirt at the time I needed it? It just never happens, at least not for me. So I decided to get rid of all those extra buttons, and if I really need a button, I can just go out and get one when I need it. Pens. I think all of us can get caught up in thinking, just save the pen, get a free pen, put it in the drawer. So many pens. I can't even explain how many pens I had. Hundreds of pens that were promo pens, pens from hotels. I now have a few of my favorite pens that I like to use, and I decluttered all the other pens. Markers. My kids like to do art, and the markers run dry all the time. So maybe once a year, every 6 months, I go through, I check all the markers, and I throw out all the dry ones. Hobbies that we did at one time, but now no longer like to do. So what sticks in my mind is I used to do scrapbooking. I was never a huge full-blown scrapbooker that had tons of stuff, but I had quite a few supplies. I was really into it, and I like to do it in my spare time. Then I had kids, and then I decided to become more minimal and try to stay clutter-free. And to me, the scrapbooking became almost a burden where I would see all the stuff and think, oh, I should do that. I should want to do that still, but I don't really want to do it anymore. So I think our hobbies and things we like to do shift as we change and get older, or, you know, whatever you're going through at the time. You might be really into something and then not anymore. And I decided to donate all of my scrapbooking stuff, and I feel way better. We have been DIYing our home and renovating for 5 years slowly. And one of the things that I have to remember to declutter are all of the leftover things that we did the project and now there's just like some leftover wood, or there's some leftover, stuff that we won't actually use. Like leftover paint you might use, but little knickknacks and things like the 2 screws that were from that one project that we already did and we no longer need. I'm trying to declutter all of that stuff. Socks. I don't think I need to explain too much about this, but I have a funny clip on the video I did with my mom when we initially decluttered her house, where she had so many socks that she was keeping them in several different drawers. So, a lot of the time we can get an overabundance of socks because we get the new ones, we keep the old ones, like just in case if something happens or you're gonna do something where they're gonna get really dirty, go in the mud, I don't know what. We come up with all these ideas, but declutter the extra socks. Extra kitchen gadgets that we don't really need. So one thing that pops in my head that I saw someone talking about was a pineapple corer. Okay. For me, that it's like if I had that, I could just declutter it because I can use a knife. I try to think of other things I could use instead of the item. And if I have a knife and that could work perfectly good, then I don't need to have like an extra thing that's only gonna work for one specific task. Junk towels. This is kind of like socks, but it's the same idea where you get new towels that you're using all the time. What to do with the old towels, put them in the junk pile, we'll use them. And then over time, like in my mom's case, over 30 years of doing that, she had so many junk towels that were just accumulating. So she went through, decluttered a ton of the junk towels. And of course, a great way to donate those is to an animal shelter, which is what we usually do. You can also donate sheets and other bedding to animal shelters as well. And now you're helping the animals and you're getting it out of your house. Books you've already read. So if I've already read a book, odds are I'm never going to read it again. It's different if it's like a reference book or something that you are going to be learning from, you need to constantly reference. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying for me, when I read a fictional book or something fun, I am done. I'm never going to read it again. So I like to donate that back to a secondhand bookstore that I use, and I actually get credit for them buying new secondhand books. I also like to use eBay to buy secondhand books at a really discounted price. And of course, I use the library. Expired food. I don't need to say much more. Stuff that we purchased for projects that we didn't end up doing. So how I like to declutter this is try to return it to Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever we bought it from. And then of course, if I can't, I still declutter it. But there's been times where we decided to do a project and then we changed our minds. It just didn't work out. So just take the stress away by getting rid of those things. Random junk in your car. I recently went through my car and decluttered everything in there. I just took every single thing out, washed my car, cleaned it, and then I thought, do I really need to put all that stuff back in there? So I was really particular about what I put in there, just like an umbrella, a few emergency things, and that was it. Cars can collect clutter really fast, especially if you have kids like me. Stuff's constantly coming in. Anything that's broken. I know this sounds obvious, like duh, but there's been times where I've gone into my kids' room and found broken toys, broken things that they literally can't use anymore. And so I try to get rid of that junk because it just helps to keep it more organized in there and it helps to avoid a lot of frustration. Kids' projects from school. This is a big one for us because we have 2 school-aged kids that are bringing tons of art home, tons of projects home. So I try to go through it immediately and only keep the things that they really love and really want to, keep in their drawer. I also have a limit system where I say if it doesn't fit in your drawer, we must declutter it. Cups and then mugs. These are all very similar, but cups and mugs sort of different. Some people collect mugs, but I found that we normally gravitate to the same mugs day after day. And so I decluttered all the rest of the mugs. I do have some matching white ones that we keep. So if we have guests, but other than that, my husband and I just have one mug that we use and all the rest I let go of. Souvenirs. I no longer buy souvenirs. I just don't even want to bring it in my house. Things we made but don't want to use. So I've made a lot of art in my life and that doesn't mean I want to hang all of it in my house. And I actually couldn't even if I wanted to because there's not enough walls. So I either declutter it, I try to find someone who might be able to use it, sell it, or just give it to the thrift store and hopefully someone else can hang it in their house. Old calendars, and as you would have seen in this office organization video, I had 2 calendars that I had kept, and with that project I decided to go through, write down the important dates, anything I wanted to remember that I had written in the calendar, I just looked through it really quick And then once I had gone through it, I decluttered and recycled those calendars. Plants that are too hard to keep alive. Okay, I am a plant person. I have plants everywhere, but some plants are just way too high maintenance for me. So if they die, they get decluttered. Non-absorbent kitchen towels. So nothing's more annoying than when you're trying to dry dishes and the towel is just not absorbent. Instead of frustrating myself to no end, I've decluttered all those towels. Unneeded mirrors. So I had a lot of mirrors as decor in my home. And when I redid some stuff, I realized I just didn't need so many mirrors. I still love mirrors, but I was keeping them because I kept thinking, well, maybe in a future project, I might want to hang it here or there. And then I realized, you know what? If I need one, I will get one at that time. So I just let them go. Makeup cases, travel cases, and things under the bathroom sink. A lot of that is usually kept under the sink. So just only keep what you really use. I'm trying, when I say you, I'm talking to myself. I'm trying to keep the stuff that I actually use when I go on vacation, the travel stuff, and also keep that under the sink cabinet organized and clutter-free as much as possible. As soon as I know I'm not using something, it's out of there. Lotions. For some reason, we end up getting lotions. I don't know if it's like we're out, we need lotion, buy another lotion. And then there's only a few that we actually like to use. So all those little ones, little bottles here and there, I've been trying to declutter or use up and go through them and then get rid of them. So I'm not just having 20 lotions open in use at the same time. It's just trying to systematically go through them and then make sure I'm not buying any more knowing that I have so much already. Luggage and purses, I'm going to lump these together. Purses were one of those things I had so many of, and I realized I really only use one purse at a time. So now I just have my everyday purse that I always use, and I have one more fancy purse that I would wear going out. It's a neutral color, so it goes with everything. So therefore, I don't have any extra purses, just the two, and that's it. And luggage is the same thing. All those extra pieces of luggage that we were never using, just storing in the garage, I now have all the pieces that we always use and we know will fit everything for any length of vacation, and no more above that. Rugs, sometimes I would change my idea of how I wanted to set things up, roll up the rug that we were no longer using, put it in the garage, and now I'm just no longer storing any of that kind of stuff. Bathing suits are a good thing to go through and declutter. I would say yearly or every other year, depending on how much swimming you do. So I know firsthand that bathing suits literally fall apart. If you've been in chlorine, they just do not last. So something funny happened where I was storing some bathing suits because I had had a baby and then some of them didn't fit, but I thought, oh, I'm gonna get back into them by summertime. And so I tried it on and oh my gosh, I just heard the elastic make this crunch noise, and the bottoms were so big at that point because all the elastic had just crunched out of it. So that made me think, okay, even though they didn't fit at the time and I thought they would, it's best to go through them and just check, because if the elastic's blown out, they're never gonna work anyway. Tools. So my husband is a woodworker. We gotta go through tools all the time, get rid of all the things that are broken or we're no longer using. And then also, since I'm a plant person, the pots that the plants come in, used in our backyard redo, and then also the ones around our house, I was keeping all of those empty pots that we transported the plants into the ground or into a different pot. I don't know why I was keeping so many. Damaged paintbrushes that are all bent up. They're impossible to use. So art that could be stored in drawers and closets. Crayons, get rid of the little like tiny bits that are all broken up. Craft supplies. If you're a crafter, you know what I'm talking about. There could be some that you're not using. And then china. My mom had fine china from 3 generations handed down to her that she didn't really like, took up a ton of room. And she asked me if I wanted it. And of course I said, no, thank you, because it's just not something that I envision myself ever using. She went online to see if she could even sell it. It wasn't worth selling, so she donated it to a friend. Don't forget to declutter your schedule. So our schedules can become really busy with all the things that we need to do, but then sometimes we throw things that we don't really need to do on top of that because we think we're superhuman. So declutter your schedule and make sure you have some free time to relax and do things you actually like. Declutter your phone, so get rid of all the apps that you're not using or the messages that are really old. I do this all the time and it helps with my speed on my phone. Declutter your desktop on your computer, get rid of all those things that you don't need or put them in folders and organize it. and this will help you to not get overwhelmed. I know it helps me a lot. Emails, they compound daily. I'm getting like 20 emails, 30 emails. So I just immediately delete all the junk mail, and then I go through, respond to the ones I need to, and then I just make sure they're all read. I delete ones that don't have any relevance to future events, but then once they're read, I just consider that finished. I've either replied to it and it's done at that point. Formal clothing that you'll never wear again. So I had prom dresses and dresses from when I was in a wedding. I decluttered all that. I knew I would never wear it again. Notes app. So sometimes I will make a note in my notes app, and then all of a sudden I have like 100 notes in my notes app, and I don't even, what are they? So I go through and I just, if I've already done it, I delete the notes, and that way I'm not overwhelmed when I go into that app. Receipts. I try to throw away all the receipts I don't need, and then I put the ones that I'm going to need for either my business, or maybe if I possibly might return something, I put them in a special pile that I know is done, like I know it's organized. Go through the receipts, and sometimes these can accumulate in your purse, so declutter the purse, declutter the receipts, and get rid of what you don't really need. Mail. I deal with this immediately. The second that the mail comes, I look at it, I throw away what I don't need, and I open what I do need, I deal with it. If it's a bill I need to pay, I deal with it right away, or I put it on my desk right center in front where I can deal with it by the end of the day. Jackets. Declutter those jackets that you're never gonna wear. My mom had a jacket that she had bought specifically for going to Alaska. We live in Southern California. The jacket was huge, and she said she was probably never gonna wear it again. She doesn't really go to cold climate places that often. And so she finally let it go, and that gave her so much room in her closet. Coins. I don't mean declutter them by throwing them away. I mean declutter them into your bank or into one of those money things where they convert it into cash for you to use. But coins take up a ton of weight and space in our homes, and so I always try to stay on top of the coins. Notebooks. I have tons of notebooks, but I try to go through and consolidate them. And if I've already written something down that I wanted to do and I've already done it, I'll rip that page out. And if I have any journals and things that I no longer want to look at, or I just don't think they apply to my life anymore, I will declutter and recycle those as well. Tablecloths, old cameras, clutter all. The keys that go to nothing.
Let's start the speed round. Furniture that you don't really need but takes up a lot of space, extra water bottles, games that your kids don't really like to play, extra curtains. I know I had a whole bunch of extra curtains that we could not find a place to use anywhere. Toys the kids don't play with anymore, bad blurry photos on your phone, too many hair things, kids' clothes that they have grown out of or are out of season, Christmas decorations, general home decor that you never use, baby gear, baby clothing, hall closets. That can collect a lot of clutter. Old prescription glasses that are no longer working for you. Sunglasses that you don't really like, but you keep just in case. And finally, heavy folding chairs that no one ever used.
I hope this list of 100 things to declutter today sparked some ideas on what you could let go of to make more space in your home and your life. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and you can click right here to continue watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!